was one of those gray mornings that seemed to seep into the soul, when even the sunlight felt cold and distant, and every sound in the world carried an echo of loneliness. Sarah sat on a weathered park bench, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted her daughter Lily's little pink coat. The air was crisp, the trees nearly bare, and the city's noise felt strangely far away, as though the world had moved on without her. She hadn't smiled, not truly, in months. Her life had become a quiet routine of survival, waking up, taking Lily to the park, pretending everything was okay, and going home to an empty apartment that still smelled faintly of the man who had once promised her forever. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the power of unexpected people to change a life, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. This story is for you. Sarah's husband, Michael, had been gone for almost a year. A car accident that came out of nowhere, leaving behind only broken glass, a shattered phone, and the echo of his laughter frozen in memory. At first, everyone surrounded her with comfort. Friends brought food, neighbors helped with Lily, and her mother stayed for weeks. But as time passed, the world moved on, as it always does. The calls stopped, the casseroles stopped coming, and Sarah was left alone with her grief, and a child too young to understand why her father never came home again. Lily, only 4 years old, asked every night the same heartbreaking question, "Mommy, will Daddy come back from heaven soon?" And Sarah would simply pull her close, whispering, "No, baby, he's watching us from the stars." But that night, Lily asked a different question, one that broke something deep inside her. She touched Sarah's tear-streaked face and whispered, "Mommy, will you ever smile again?" Sarah couldn't answer. The truth was, she didn't know how. Weeks passed, and the world around her kept spinning. Bills piled up, her job at the bookstore cut her hours, and her savings were dwindling. Every night she sat by the window, staring out at the city lights, wondering how a person was supposed to start over when half of her heart was buried beneath the earth. Her only solace was the small cafe at the corner of Maple and Fifth, the one where she used to meet Michael after work. They'd sit in the window booth sharing coffee, laughing about silly things. Now Sarah went there alone, sitting in the same seat, watching couples walk by hand in hand. One rainy evening she stayed there until the cafe was nearly empty. The rain tapped against the window like 1,000 tiny memories, and her reflection stared back at her, tired, pale, and distant. She didn't notice that the waiter behind the counter had been watching her for weeks, quietly observing the woman who never smiled but always left a small tip and a polite thank you. His name was Ethan. Ethan had worked at the cafe for years, his life simple and quiet. He had dreams once, of being a musician, of traveling. But those dreams had faded under the weight of responsibility. His mother's illness had anchored him to this town, to this little cafe, where he poured coffee for strangers and tried not to think too much about what could have been. Yet something about Sarah caught his attention, the way she held her coffee cup with both hands as if trying to absorb its warmth into her soul, the way she always looked like she was about to cry but never did. That night, as the cafe clock struck 9, Ethan walked over to her table. "We're closing soon," he said gently. She nodded, lost in thought. He could have just left her there, but something in his heart told him not to. He wiped the counter one last time, removed his apron, and sat across from her. Sarah looked up, surprised. "You don't have to sit with me," she murmured. "I know," he replied softly, "but I think you shouldn't be alone tonight." They didn't talk much that evening. Sometimes words aren't needed. He just sat there, and she sat there too, two lonely souls sharing silence in a small cafe that smelled of rain and coffee. When she finally stood to leave, he said something simple, but it stayed with her forever. "Don't give up on smiling. Even if it takes time, you'll find a reason again." The next morning, Sarah woke up feeling something she hadn't in months. Not happiness, but warmth. Maybe it was the memory of Ethan's kindness, or maybe it was the hope that life still had small miracles left to give. She began to visit the cafe more often, and each time, Ethan was there. Sometimes behind the counter, sometimes cleaning tables, sometimes pretending to rearrange sugar jars just so he could say hello. He never pried into her life, never asked too many questions. But he noticed the little things. How she began to wear brighter clothes, how Lily sometimes tagged along, shyly holding her mother's hand. Ethan would bring Lily a small cookie with a smiley face drawn in icing, saying it was for the bravest girl in the cafe. Lily adored him instantly. Over time, Sarah began to open up. She told him about Michael, about the accident, about how she felt like her world had ended that night. Ethan listened, really listened, without pity or judgment. He shared his own story too, how he'd lost his mother, how he had once dreamed of music but stayed behind to take care of her. The more they talked, the more the heaviness inside Sarah began to lift. She found herself laughing again, softly at first, then louder, freer. The first time Lily heard her laugh, she clapped her hands and shouted, "Mommy, you smiled! You really smiled!" Sarah froze, tears filling her eyes, realizing just how much she had missed that sound, her own laughter. But life, as always, tests the fragile things. One afternoon, Sarah arrived at the cafe to find it closed. A handwritten sign on the door said, "Closed for family emergency." Days passed, and there was no sign of Ethan. The emptiness returned like an old ghost, whispering that maybe she had been foolish to believe in hope again. Then one morning, she found a letter slipped under her door. It was from Ethan. He wrote that his sister had been in an accident, and he had to leave town for a while to take care of her. But near the end of the letter, he added, "Don't stop smiling. I meant what I said. You're stronger than you think, and you deserve to find peace again. I'll come back when I can, and when I do, I hope I see that smile for real." Months went by. Sarah focused on building her life again. She took a new job at a local library, started volunteering at a shelter, and spent her weekends taking Lily to the park. The world began to feel alive again, not because she forgot her pain, but because she learned to carry it differently. Then, one crisp autumn morning, she was sitting on that same park bench, the one where she used to cry, when Lily ran up with a giggle, pointing toward the path. "Mommy, look, it's the Cookie Man." Sarah turned, and there he was, Ethan, standing under the golden trees holding 2 cups of coffee. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. Time had changed him slightly, but the warmth in his eyes was the same. He walked toward her, smiling that familiar, quiet smile. "I told you I'd come back," he said softly. They sat together, watching Lily chase the falling leaves. There were no grand declarations, no promises of forever. Just 2 people who had found each other in the ruins of their pasts, learning that healing sometimes comes not from forgetting, but from being reminded that you're still capable of love, laughter, and light. As the sun dipped low, Sarah looked at Ethan and whispered, "You kept your promise." He smiled. "No, you did. If this story touched your heart, if you believe that kindness, patience, and second chances can heal even the deepest wounds, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It helps stories like these reach more hearts in need of hope. And before this story ends, I have a small request. Comment below. I still believe in kindness, if you do. Because somewhere out there, someone needs to see that they're not alone. Sarah never forgot that rainy evening in the cafe, the moment a stranger took off his apron and chose to sit with her instead of walking away. It wasn't the start of a perfect love story, but it was the beginning of something even more beautiful, the reminder that life can break you, but it can also rebuild you, piece by piece, through the kindness of those who care enough to stay. And as she watched Lily laugh under the falling leaves, Sarah finally smiled, not because her pain was gone, but because she had learned to live beyond it. She smiled, because someone once promised she would again.